Imagine this. Someone says something bad about you. They question if you're good enough or if you meant well. Most people would quickly try to explain themselves, right? Like, I didn't mean that. Or, you got me wrong. They think it's fair. To defend themselves. But what if doing that makes you look weak? According to a guy named Machiavelli, if you quickly defend yourself, it can make others think you're not strong. In any power game, how people see you is super important. If they see you get upset or try to explain, they won't see someone who's been wronged. They'll see someone they can push around. Machiavelli believed this simple, tough rule. The person who defends themselves actually lowers their own standing. But the person who doesn't defend themselves makes everyone else wonder and even defend them instead. Why? Defending yourself doesn't work? Trying to explain yourself rarely changes anyone's mind. What it does do is give your power away. When you try to justify what you did, you're playing by their rules. You're saying, okay, you have the right to question me. Once they have that, they control the story. Even if you're right, you might look guilty because only weak people rush to explain. Strong people, they stay quiet. They let the bad words hang in the air. They know the real trick is to make the accuser look silly instead. Make others think the accuser is too emotional, obsessed, or unstable. The person who talks first often loses control of the situation. Machiavelli knew, whoever controls the story controls the result. Most folks defend themselves because they want to be understood. Think if they just explain enough, people will see they're innocent. But that way of thinking comes from feeling emotional, not from smart planning. Right? You don't want people to understand you. You want to be in charge. Understanding is for when you're talking to a therapist. Being in charge is for when you want power. Power doesn't come from being understood. It comes from people being a bit scared of you, respecting you, and seeing you as someone they can't mess with. So if someone calls you rude, cold, selfish, or tricky, and you quickly say, no, you don't get it, you've already lost. Out. You're reacting. You're showing you care. You've given them the upper hand. When you do that, you lose a very clever tool. Mystery. Think about the most powerful people you've met. They're not always the loudest or the most popular. They're the ones who use silence like a secret weapon. The ones who make you second guess yourself just by looking at you. The ones who don't even blink when attacked. Machiavelli would tell you, the person who explains gives in. The person who stays quiet makes others guess, and they usually guess that person is more important than they seem. That's the game. When you don't react, others feel weird. They start to doubt their own words. They look around for someone to agree with them, but no one does. Suddenly, their power shrinks and yours grows. Why? Because you did the one thing emotional people can't stand. You made them talk to themselves. That's how you flip things around. You let their bad words just disappear because they weren't strong enough. How to handle being called out? Let's look at this more closely. You walk into a room. Someone says something mean, maybe a small dig or a direct insult about your success, your attitude, or your past. Everyone looks at you, waiting to see what you'll say. Here's your move. Say nothing. No defending, no fighting back, no smirk. Just stay calm and still. At that moment, no one can touch you. Everyone in the room will. Wonder, why didn't they react? Do they know something we don't? Are they too important for this? Did that attack just make them stronger? You just changed the whole vibe of the room. People aren't watching the insult anymore. They're watching your response. And silence. When you're present and calm says more than any explanation ever could. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't just study politics. He studied how people think. And he understood one thing better than anyone. Power isn't about what you say. It's about what people think you could say, but choose not to. The coolest trick. Turning it around sometimes. You don't just ignore the bad words. You flip them. Someone calls you tricky. Smile, look past them, and say, if that's how you see it, not defensive, not sorry, just cool and not bothered. What happens? They get flustered because they wanted to fight. Instead, they're left holding their own weapon. Then they start feeling guilty. They wonder if they went too far. if they embarrass themselves, if they look insecure. And guess what? You just took their negative energy and made them deal with it. Without doing a thing, there's a point when silence becomes too much to handle, not for you, but for the person who wanted a reaction. That's when things change. They thought they were the accuser. Now they look like someone just begging for attention. And you just became much more powerful than just innocent. You became untouchable. Machiavelli understood something most people won't. Words aren't for explaining the truth, they're for hiding it. When someone attacks you, they want you to get lost in trying to explain things emotionally, because the more you explain, the less sure you look. So instead, let them fill the silence. What happens? They overdo it. They repeat themselves. They start looking desperate, emotional, and unstable. You said nothing, but now they're the ones being judged because the crowd isn't listening to the words. They're watching who's calm and who's losing it. That's social power. And it doesn't come from being right. It comes from being untouchable. Real-life examples in a business meeting. Let's say you're in a business meeting. Someone tries to subtly make you look bad, maybe saying, "I'm not sure that plan is really thought through," or "He always has these big ideas." They want you to react, want you to get upset. Most people would lean forward, explain, prove their point, and get nervous. Everyone in the room would sense it. But the clever person leans back, they wait, maybe even smile a little. And if they speak, it's not to defend themselves. It's to turn it back on the attacker. "Let's hear your plan then." Now the attacker has to perform and the focus shifts. Suddenly they are being judged. You're under pressure because silence from someone confident is like an accusation without words. It makes people feel small without you doing anything. In relationships, in your personal relationships. This can be even more tricky. Say your partner says, "You don't care about me anymore." The average person would panic. They'd start explaining, reassuring, and defending themselves. By doing so, they agree with the emotional way the partner framed the problem. But the Machiavelli way is different. You don't brush them off, you don't argue. You let the accusation just hang there. You watch them deal with their own feelings in the quiet space. Then calmly you reply, "That's not how I see it." Short, firm, no explanation, no excuses. Now they feel unsure. They question their own tone. Wonder if they were too emotional. Because in that moment, you controlled the emotional rhythm. And whoever controls the rhythm controls the situation. The coldest trick. Disappearing. There's an even colder trick. Don't just stay calm when accused. Disappear. Someone insults you. Don't reply. Don't respond. Don't even acknowledge it. Don't block them either. Let your silence be like a mirror. Let them sit in the quiet of being ignored. This messes with people in two ways. They realize you didn't even think they were worth a reply. They start making up stories in their head. And most times, it breaks their composure. Why? Because most people need emotional feedback to feel okay. Even in a fight, if you take that away, they wither, they get crazy, they post more, they talk to others, they try to make you respond. And with every new try, they look weaker, more obsessed, more out of control. All while you stay perfectly still. And that's how you win. Not because you proved anything, but because they ruin themselves trying to get a reaction from you. Being unstoppable, here's a top-level move. Instead of defending yourself when attacked, make their accusation look like their weakness. Someone calls you arrogant. Funny how being sure of myself makes some people uncomfortable. Someone says you're tricky. Only people who can't be told what to do say that. Someone calls you fake. Everyone says that when they don't get what they want anymore. You don't just say no, you make it about their insecurity. And now, they're the ones scrambling to defend themselves. It's not just turning things around. It's like a power move, where you use their own emotional force to make them fall apart in public. Machiavelli would call this turning the blade. Don't block their attack. Let the attacker fall on their own sword. The world tells you to protect your good name, to explain yourself, to clear things up. But Machiavelli saw the trap. He knew that the moment you try to prove you're innocent, you actually look guilty. So the truly smart person never plays that game. Instead, they look too calm to be shaken, too important to care, too clear about their position to explain it. And slowly, those who try to bring them down start looking unstable, too quick to react, jealous, and weak. Because the more you defend, the more it looks like you need to. But the more you ignore, the more dangerous people think you are. And that idea, that's where power comes from. Power isn't about proving anything. Most people think power is about proving yourself, proving you're right, proving you're not what they say, proving you're better than what they think. But Machiavelli would just smirk at this the second you try. To prove anything, you're saying their judgment is important. And when you give someone that importance, you give them control over you. Let's say you're in a group, a dinner, a meeting. Someone makes a public jab. You always act like you know everything, or he's always like this. I guess being humble isn't your thing. What do most people do? They get tense. They try to laugh it off. Worse, they explain themselves, trying to smooth things over. They think they're saving face. But what they're really doing is showing that the insult hit them. Everyone's watching the defense, and that alone makes the original insult seem true. Here's what the Machiavelli person does instead: pause. Stay silent for just a couple of seconds. Look around the room, not angrily, but with a quiet, knowing look. Then only if you absolutely have to, say something calm, clear, and dismissing. You seem emotional today, or interesting thought, or simply nothing at all. It's just a long still. Gaze. What happens next is clear. The attacker gets uncomfortable. They fidget. They look for someone to agree with them. They try to explain their joke. They feel the heat of the room turning on them because your lack of reaction just told the room something louder than words. You're not the one being judged. They are online attacks in the online world. Things happen even faster. Comments, posts, call-outs, direct messages, people trying to make you react. Here's the truth Machiavelli would want you to remember. In the court of public opinion, silence looks like guilt unless your silence makes people feel a little scared. So here's the trick. When you're attacked online, don't defend. Don't explain. Change the story. You don't respond to the direct claim. You send the energy back to the crowd. For example, someone says you're toxic or tricky. Instead of posting a long, tearful explanation, you post, "People always call you dangerous when they can't control you. What just happened? You didn't defend. You made the accusation into something that shows your power." Now, they look bitter. You look unaffected. And the audience starts to wonder who's really in charge. That's not just fixing damage. That's taking over the story. 3 tools instead of defending. Let's get even more precise. There are 3 tools you can use instead of defending yourself. Silence. This is your go-to. Cold, powerful, and leaves them exposed. Deflection. Change the topic or the meaning of the accusation without even acknowledging the insult. Precision cuts. Short. Truths that end the game right away. Examples. Someone says, "You're full of yourself." You respond, "Being confident makes insecure people uncomfortable." They say, "You're fake." You respond, "I don't have to be real for you." They say, "You think you're better than everyone?" You respond, "No, I just don't think like everyone." These aren't defenses. They're statements of your strength. They don't say, "I'm not guilty." They say, "You can't touch me." And that's the main idea. The Machiavelli person never begs to be seen as good. They dare people to see them as bad and still walk tall. When you refuse to defend yourself, something strange happens to your enemies. They lose it because they expected a fight, and instead they're swinging at smoke. They start doing more. They push harder. They get more dramatic. They show more of their own insecurities. And the more they do, the more you look better in the eyes of others. Why? Because you've made them cause their own downfall. And that's the Machiavelli endgame. You don't destroy your enemies. Let their obsession with you destroy them. Being feared and unpredictably might think being misunderstood is bad, but being easy to predict is much worse. The person who's misunderstood has a bit of mystery. The predictable person is easy to trick. People who are always trying to clear things up look desperate. People who stay calmly misunderstood are actually feared. Machiavelli knew this. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But even more, it's better to be confusing than predictable, because the confused person is careful. They watch you. They don't act quickly. Control the game. Let's get rid of the last myth. You don't need a good reputation to win. You need a strong one. The person with a good reputation is expected to be clean, soft, and agreeable. The person with a strong reputation, they're not always liked. They're not always trusted. But no one dares to casually go against them. That's what happens when you never defend yourself. Your reputation isn't about what people believe. It's about what they fear you'll do next. That's how you flip the power. You stop trying to get approval. Instead, you create an energy that makes people careful, because even your silence feels like a choice. Every move you don't make becomes a big move in their mind. The best level is not just silence. It's an aura, a presence that is so calm, so sure of itself, so far above the petty noise that accusations just disappear before they even land. And this doesn't come from being emotionless. It comes from choosing not to be bothered. It's because once you've taught yourself not to defend, not to explain, not to look for approval, you cross a line. A line where just being you becomes your defense. And that's when power feels easy. Think about the few people in life who never explain themselves. They don't post long rants. They don't correct what others say. They don't argue with critics. Yet people respect them more. Why? Because silence when you're accused creates a legend, makes people wonder. And the human mind, when it doesn't get an explanation, fills that empty space with ideas of strength. People think you must be dangerous. You must know something they don't. You must be so sure of who you are that you don't even blink when challenged. And that idea, that's what makes people follow you. The ultimate payoff. Others defend you. Machiavelli didn't care about being good. He cared about being in control. And the person who never defends is always in control of how people see them, even when surrounded by lies. Here's the surprising part. The more you explain yourself, the more alone you look, because no one feels they need to step in when you're already arguing for yourself. But if you stay calm, if you stand silent and unaffected, people start to feel the urge to defend you. They might say, "That was uncalled for. He didn't deserve that. Why are you going after him? You didn't even respond, and you're still pushing." Suddenly, they become your shield. And what's better than defending yourself? Letting others do it for you without even asking? That's clever power. Let the crowd argue your case while you stay above the noise. Now you're not just respected, you're seen as higher up. This doesn't happen overnight. You build it slowly, step by step, by being controlled, by choosing stillness instead of reacting, by never explaining more than you have to. Start here. Never correct insults that are clearly meant to make you mad. Let them talk. Let their words echo. Your silence tells the room that the insult didn't even register with you. Respond to hidden attacks with calm confusion, not anger. Is that how you see it? Said very calmly. Takes away all the emotional power from their attack. Use short, rotating phrases instead of explanations. Noted, okay? Think what you like. Time will tell. Each one closes the door. Doesn't invite more arguing. It ends the scene. Watch how you hold your face, your body, your eyes. The Machiavelli person never twitches, flinches, or gets tense. Stillness is their armor. And the calmer you are when others are losing control, the more your power quietly grows. When people don't know how to make you mad, they fear you because you become unpredictable. Not messy, but impossible to read. You're like a mirror that shows them their own instability, Machiavelli would say. The most dangerous person is not the one who attacks first. It is the one who never needs to. You will reach a point where attacks stop, not because you fought them, but because people know they'll lose before they even start. Your presence says, "I don't play defense. I let others destroy themselves trying to get to me." There's a difference between being strong and being unbreakable. Strength still reacts, still gets emotional, even if it fights back. Unbreakable? It doesn't even notice the hit. That's the Machiavelli idea. You don't win the argument. You end the argument before it starts by never having to answer it. Because when you no longer defend yourself, people stop seeing you as someone who needs to be put on trial. You're not on their level. You've moved beyond needing public approval. And the only judgment that matters is your own. From this point on, you don't live trying to defend yourself. You live by defining yourself. You decide your image. You decide your tone. You decide your silence. And people feel that. They feel the certainty in your eyes, the calmness in your posture, the danger in your quiet. You're not just resisting. Anymore, you're giving orders. And that's when the room changes. The crowd talks less. Your enemies get quieter. Your name carries weight. Not because you fought for it, but because you never explained it. Never defending yourself doesn't mean never speaking. It means speaking only when it changes the power balance. When you say something, it should feel like a strategic move, not just a response. Because every time you don't explain yourself, every time you stay still while the world goes crazy, you become the one thing they can't control. A person who answers to no one.